I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about elections in Germany, elections in the eastern state of Thuringia. And this is very significant for Merkel, or at least significant in that it shows that Merkel is losing a lot of her power. The CDU is losing a lot of its power in Italy. I'm going to read you an excerpt from Zero Hedge, Alexander, which I think sums up the results in Thuringia, and then you can take it from there. The election result showed that centrism is again floundering at the expense of extreme political ideologies. While the far left Die Linke party easily won with about 30%, the Alternative for Germany came second with 23%, according to early exit polls, more than doubling its results in the previous election in 2014. Merkel's Christian Democrats, CDU, which had always received the most votes since 1990, dipped massively on Sunday. The CDU, which ruled Thuringia without interruption from 1992 until 2014, plummeted 11 points from 2014 to 22.5%. At the same time, the populist right-wing AfD soared and looked set to narrowly surpass the CDU with 24%, the poll showed. The AfD also scored far ahead of Merkel's coalition partners, the once powerful Social Democrats, SPD, who scored only 8%. Alexander.
In fact, Alex, I can now give you the complete results. Die Linke came top with 29.7% of the vote. To understand how extraordinary that is, bear in mind that this is an East German land or region in Germany, and Die Linke in Eastern Germany is essentially the former East German Communist Party, the ruling party in East Germany, which ran East Germany when it was a Soviet ally during the Cold War. So that's, they've now come first. Second was the AfD with 23.8% of the vote, up from 10.6% in 2014. And the CDU plunged to 22.6% from 33% in 2014. So that's a massive fall. As Zero Hedge said, they've lost 11% of their vote. And bear in mind, again, as Zero Hedge said, the CDU has been historically the dominant party in Thuringia. It ruled without interruption from 1992 right up to 2014. And in 2014, though it was ousted by a coalition of parties, it still topped the poll. Even more dramatic has been the collapse of Merkel's coalition partner, the left of centre, SPD, which has gone down to 8.6% of the vote. And the Greens, who are a strong political force in West Germany, were nowhere with around 5% of the vote. So these are the results. Now, think about it. What it means is that Die Linke, which is the left, and the AfD, which is the right, are first and second. That is the first time that's happened in German politics since the end of the Second World War, that a strong left party and a strong right party have ousted the centrist parties which have governed Germany since the war, the CDU and the SPD. And even more remarkable, the votes of the Die Linke and of the AfD together total more than 50% of the total votes cast. So we have seen a collapse of the centre in Thuringia and a rise of the left and of the right in ways that we have never imagined or seen before. Now, I'm always worried about when people talk about the extreme right and the extreme left, because that implies that the Die Linke is still a communist party. As I said, it's based on the former communist party, but it's evolved into a more democratic left-wing party. And as for the AfD, it contains many, many people, but this constant attempt to suggest that it's extreme right and is some kind of neo-fascist party is completely wrong, in my opinion, and we should avoid that kind of labeling, which I think is completely misleading. The point is, the Die Linke is a left-wing party, the AfD is a right-wing party. Merkel has sought to lead Germany from the center, and the center is collapsing.
What is the commonality between Die Linke and AfD? In other words, what are the common threads that have pushed voters to look either to the left or to the right? Could you say something like immigration may be a common thread between these two parties? You know, I use the analogy of say progressives and conservatives in the United States, where you have a commonality of, say, non-interventionism. Kind of binds the two.
Right. There's three things that link these parties together. There's three things that the AfD and Die Linke have in common. Both are anti-globalist parties. I mean, they are against globalization. That is one. That's extremely important because, of course, that takes in the question of immigration. The sort of parties that are strong for immigration in Germany are the globalist parties, the CDU, the SPD, the Free Democrats to some extent, and definitely the Greens. The Die Linke and the AfD emphatically so, are hostile to immigration and to globalism generally. The second thing they have in common is that they are strongly anti-interventionist. They strongly oppose globalist wars, or these regime change wars that we have seen, and both of them want improved relations with Russia. Both of them are regularly labeled in Germany as pro-Russian parties. And the third thing that these two parties have in common is that they loathe Angela Merkel and everything she stands for, and run in elections increasingly now as anti-Merkel parties. So this is a vote against globalization. It is a vote against interventionism. It is a vote against Merkel. There are things that the two parties have which are different. The Die Linke is a left-wing party, so it's pretty strong on welfare issues, on workers' rights. AfD is not. It's a more right-wing party in its economic philosophies. But they do have those three things in common, and we should not underestimate their force.
Okay, so the center is collapsing.
Yes.
How much longer is the CDU going to rely on Merkel?
Well, that's a very good question. Now, I mean, the CDU had a big problem last year. It did look as if they might finally turn against Merkel. In the end, they didn't. But one other party, the other party that is the major prop underneath Merkel's throne, is the SPD, the Social Democratic Party of Germany, Germany's oldest party with roots back in the 19th century, once and for long periods Germany's dominant party, the party in modern times of Willy Brandt and Helmut Schmidt, and the party which now, in a regional election, won no more than 8.6% of the vote, an incredible collapse. Anyway, many people in the SPD are now asking themselves, how much longer can we remain in coalition with Merkel and sustain her in office before our vote disappears or disintegrates completely. There is a power struggle underway within the SPD. There's again a major push by more and more of its activists and membership to get the SPD out of this grand coalition, which is destroying it, this grand coalition with Merkel. There is a high probability that it will leave the coalition in December. If the SPD leaves the coalition in December, it's going to be incredibly difficult, it seems to me, for Merkel to put together a new coalition, given that both the Greens and the only other possible coalition partner, the FDP, the Liberal Party in Germany, are deeply suspicious of her. And in that case, I think it is highly likely that Merkel will finally go.
But what does that mean practically? Does she have a successor?
Yes.
Does this mean new elections?
Yes. No,
different coalition partners?
I think Merkel goes. I think there would be an effort to patch up the coalition in some form with a Merkel-anointed CDU leader taking over from her. But I have to say, it would be such a scissors and paste job. It wouldn't, I think, survive for very long. So at some point, I think this whole coalition is going to finally collapse. So Merkel will go probably in December, and Merkelism, which is this really strange political system that she's created during the time she's been Chancellor, I think that will go shortly after. The votes in Thuringia emphatically and categorically rejected it.
How does the EU look at these results now? What's their take on this, you think? The power base in Brussels?
Well, I think this depends very much on who you mean within the EU. There are people like
pro Merkel and pro Macron. Let's divide it up there.
Let's divide it up. Let us divide it there. I mean, the pro Merkel camp. People like Juncker and Tusk, both of whom are going, but also Ursula von der Leyen, who's going to be the new European Commission president. They will be looking at all of this with great trepidation, because from their point of view, their patron, the Queen of Europe, Angela Merkel, the person they've looked to and relied upon, she's about to lose her throne. That must be how it seems to them. Macron, he's been scheming to dethrone Merkel for some time. We will discuss shortly his intrigues with respect to Brexit. He wants to be the new emperor of Europe in place of Merkel. He will welcome her departure, and he will try to use the period of German weakness that will cause, German weakness and German confusion that will cause, until the Germans come up with a new leader to push his very aggressive globalist and interventionist agenda on the EU. And then there is the third group, the emerging group led by Viktor Orban, who will also, I think, be happy to see Merkel go for entirely different reasons, because as far as they were concerned, she was the person who always cobbled together enough support within the EU to keep the globalist integrationist train on track. And I think they would probably relish an all-out battle with Macron, whom I think they can defeat. So I think with Merkel going, what you will see is the person who held it all together, both in Germany and in the EU, out of the way, and we will see major conflict and infighting starting. Bear in mind that Germany is on the brink of recession, so is the EU. Merkel going is going to emphasize that trouble and instability is on the way.
Yeah, I think that the end of Merkel is a sign of things to come, Alexander. I mean,
yes.
Broaden this out a little bit to end the video. We're seeing protests in Spain. We see Brexit. We see what's happening to Merkel now, and the fact that people are voting either for left parties or for right parties. You know, we see what's happening in South America. You know, it seems like we're living in the U.S.
Yes.
It seems like we're living in an age where we're going to see a lot of instability, a lot of change.
Yes.
A lot of, for lack of a better word, revolution, maybe protest, revolution. I don't know what that word really means, revolution, but take it from there, broaden it out just a little bit to close the video, because this is big news. What's happened in Germany, which has always been a sign of stability.
Yes, I mean, this is the key point to understand. I mean, Merkel has been the great force of stability at the center of German politics and at the center of European politics. As I said, she's held everything together basically by ruling Germany and the EU from what some people call the militant center. It's been, you know, the pro-European but pro-German center. She's been able to leverage Germany's huge economic power over the EU and her undoubted diplomatic skills, both within Germany and outside it, to keep this whole thing on track. But of course, what this has done is that she has consistently set her face against any significant change. And the result is she's become, over the last decade or so, the force of immobilism. Nothing ever changes or moves. So the result is you have a German economy that's becoming very poorly adapted to the very great changes in the world economy that have been happening. I mean, you are much more of a technology person than I am, but I think it's fair to say that Germany has not kept fully abreast of technological change in the way that you see other countries, the United States, China, Russia also, by the way, have managed to keep up. I mean, I was reading recently that, you know, in countries like China and Russia, fiber optics are now almost, mainstream. Germany has never moved beyond copper wires. That's the reality of it. I mean, they stick to what they know, which is mechanical engineering, which they do supremely well. But as I say, it's been overtaken by technological change. And of course, she's never really sorted out the major problems in the financial system, both the German financial system and the EU's financial system, because doing so would be very controversial and would open her up to all kinds of criticisms and risks. And the result is that there's been no real change. So the euro is as it was. Southern Europe is in deep economic crisis, and the banking system across Europe remains deeply waterlogged and in heavy debt. Banks like Deutsche Bank that we've discussed in videos are structurally insolvent, and the whole financial system is unfit for purpose. And at the same time, this immobilism, this inability to address problems, is also leading to greater and greater problems on the periphery. So you see, for example, Southern Europe, deeply disaffected. People have had to endure very oppressive conditions of austerity right across Southern Europe. You see problems, they crop up in Greece, they crop up in Italy, they're cropping up now in Spain. They are, by the way, also cropping up in Portugal, where right-wing parties are now growing in strength. We see Britain leaving. Another we see Brexit anyway, some kind of Brexit, a vote for Brexit, and a political crisis in Britain. We see Turkey, once seen as a prospective EU country, increasingly distancing itself from the EU, and pro-EU sentiment in Turkey disintegrating. And overarching everything, there's been this total collapse of relations with Russia. Now, that is a terrible situation. And who has caused it? The person at the center of it all, Angela Merkel, who never looked at the bigger picture, never planned strategically for Germany, never took risks, never wanted to take either political risks or economic risks, always stood against any kind of change. So the result is that all of these problems have been kicked repeatedly down the road to the point where they've now accumulated and have become massive and are about to get completely out of control and risk tumbling down and smashing the entire structure. That is Merkel's legacy. The sooner she goes, the better. But the fact of her going, precisely because, as I say, she stood for a kind of stability, the fact of her going might also create more instability as well. Can I talk about briefly, as a good historical analogy, the person for whom, the political leader who I think she most closely resembles? That's Leonid Brezhnev. The first time I made that comparison between Merkel and Brezhnev was in 2015. I noticed, by the way, that it's been cropping up more and more in more and more articles. There was an article in the Daily Telegraph in Britain by Ambrose Evans Pritchard very recently, which also, for example, made that comparison between Brezhnev and Merkel. And you saw the same thing happen with Brezhnev. Brezhnev constantly kicked the can down the road with all the problems the Soviet Union with Russia had. He failed to carry out any changes or reforms because they were so controversial. In the end, whilst he was there, that preserved a kind of stability. The moment he left, the whole thing fell apart. And I suspect we're going to see something very like that when Merkel is gone.
Yeah, it really is a false stability. I mean, it appears stable, but it's not. And people realize this.
It's a completely false stability. They feel it. They sense it. Frankly, you sensed it right across Europe, and you're now sensing it in Germany itself. As I said, this is what the vote in Thuringia said. Bear in mind, we've had a whole succession of elections in London, in West German and East German regions, and each one has gone badly for Merkel and for her centric parties. The ones in Thuringia were the most dramatic. These are the most dramatic and extreme results yet. But bear in mind, Thuringia, as I said, is a region which the CDU historically dominated. It's a relatively conservative region by German standards. It's also a region which is hugely, seminally important in German culture. I mean, the city of Weimar is located there. It's very important culturally. Weimar's very important culture. It's the region of people like Johann Bach, of Martin Luther. Goethe played a big role there. These are all enormously important people in German culture. And so to lose Thuringia in this way is, I think, enormously important to understand where Germany is going.
Okay, Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on that notifications bell to make sure you get notifications when we publish a new video. Also, go to Soundcloud and iTunes to pick up an audio copy of this video. And please donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. You will find links in the description box down below, and your donation really helps out this channel a whole lot. And go to the Duran shop, theduranshop.com, and pick up some merchandise. We've got magic mugs, which will help you understand everything that's going on in Germany. And we have awesome magic shirts as well with our double-headed eagle.
Absolutely. And can I just say, we're both drinking from our respective magic mugs. I'm drinking from the one with the Alpha Force emblem, the Alpha Force being Russia's elite special units force. Alex is drinking from his mug, which has the double-headed eagle of the Russian Federation. Should not be confused with the double-headed eagle of the Duran, which we have on our shirts. Each of us today is wearing, by the way, the same T-shirt. But can I just say, we've got lots and lots and lots of other great T-shirts in our shop. Alex has been refreshing our product line, and we've got lots of T-shirts there. We've got short sleeve T-shirts. We've got long sleeve T-shirts. We've got V-neck shirts. We got absolutely amazing and really beautiful and smart polo neck shirts, and we've got hoodies, and we've got hats, and we've got stickers, and we've got other great things. And as Alex says, the quality of our product is superbly high. This is perfect, a beautiful porcelain mug, 15 ounces. All our shirts are 100% cotton. They're really well made. They're incredibly comfortable to wear. They're incredibly, you look amazingly smart when you wear them. So what's holding you back? Go to our shop, help the Duran, buy yourself these great things. Alex will tell you how to do it.
You'll find a link to the Duran shop in the description box down below, theduranshop.com. And also don't forget, you can catch us on BitChute as well. We have a channel there, so you can see our videos on BitChute. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.